You're born in the middle of nowhere, suspended in an endless blue that stretches in every direction. No walls, no ceiling, no ground beneath you, just water. Your mother released millions of eggs into the current weeks ago, and you're one of the lucky few who actually made it this far. Most of your siblings never even had a chance. They were eaten before they could develop, swept away by currents, or simply failed to grow. But you beat the odds, and now you're here, a tiny translucent speck drifting through the ocean with absolutely no idea what's coming next. At first, you don't look like much. You're smaller than a grain of rice, your body is see-through, and you have this weird orange sac attached to your belly. That's your yolk sac, and it's basically your lunch money for the next few days. You don't hunt, you don't swim properly, you just float around absorbing nutrients from that little orange blob while your body figures out how to actually function. Your eyes are huge compared to the rest of you, taking up most of your head like you're some kind of alien, which honestly isn't that far from the truth when you look at what you'll become. The ocean around you is alive with movement. Tiny creatures drift past, some smaller than you, some bigger. You don't know it yet, but most of them want to eat you. Jellyfish pulse through the water like living umbrellas, their tentacles trailing behind them. If you drift too close, that's it. Game over. Copepods zip around like underwater insects, and while they're small, they're fast enough to catch you if you're not careful. Even other fish larvae, not much bigger than you, will snap you up without hesitation. The ocean doesn't care that you're just starting out. If you're small enough to fit in something's mouth, you're on the menu. Your yolk sac shrinks day by day, and with it, your safety net disappears. Soon, you'll need to start feeding yourself, but right now, you can barely control where you're going. The current pushes you around like a leaf in the wind. Sometimes, you're near the surface where the water is warm and bright. Other times, you sink deeper where it's cold and dark. You have no choice in the matter. You're at the mercy of forces bigger than you can comprehend. When the yolk sac finally disappears, hunger hits you like a wall. Suddenly you understand what all those movements in your gut meant. You need food, and you need it now. Your first attempts at hunting are pathetic. You see a tiny organism drifting nearby, something even smaller than you, and you lunge for it. You miss completely, tumbling through the water like you've forgotten how fins are supposed to work. The current carries your potential meal away while you're still trying to figure out which way is up. But hunger is a powerful teacher. You try again and again, learning to time your strikes better. You discover that your huge eyes aren't just for show. They can spot the tiniest movements in the water around you. A microscopic crustacean drifts within range, and this time you don't miss. It's barely a snack, but it's your first real meal. The taste is nothing special, but the satisfaction of actually catching something yourself feels incredible. Feeding becomes your entire world. You hunt constantly, darting after anything small enough to swallow. Tiny copepod larvae, microscopic algae, bits of organic matter that drift down from above. Everything is potential food. You're growing, but so slowly that you barely notice. Each day you're a fraction bigger, a fraction stronger, but you're still incredibly vulnerable. A single wrong move, one moment of inattention, and something will eat you. The water around you changes constantly. Sometimes it's crystal clear, so transparent you can see for what feels like miles. Other times it turns green with plankton blooms. The water so thick with tiny organisms that it's like swimming through soup. These blooms are both a blessing and a curse. There's food everywhere, more than you could possibly eat, but the water becomes murky and disorienting. Predators can hide in the green haze, appearing out of nowhere to snap up distracted prey. As weeks pass, Your body starts to change. Your fins grow larger and more defined. Your tail becomes more powerful, giving you better control over your movement. Most importantly, your mouth grows bigger, which means you can target larger prey. No more surviving on microscopic scraps. Now you can go after things with some actual substance. Your first real hunt is terrifying and exhilarating. You spot a small copepod, much larger than anything you've attempted before. It's about half your size, which in the larval world makes it a monster. You approach carefully, using the hunting techniques you've been developing. Timing is everything. Too early and it will escape. Too late and something else might beat you to it. You strike, your jaws closing around the copepod, just as it tries to dart away. It struggles in your mouth, its legs kicking frantically, but you hold on. When you finally swallow it, the meal is more satisfying than dozens of the tiny organisms you've been surviving on. But success comes with new dangers. As you grow larger, you become visible to bigger predators. Small fish that previously ignored you now see you as potential food. You learn to recognize the shadow of danger passing overhead. Larger fish, jellyfish, even seabirds diving down from the surface. When threats appear, you dive deeper or hide among drifting debris, anything to avoid becoming someone else's meal. The ocean is vast, but it's also surprisingly crowded. You're constantly surrounded by other creatures, all of them trying to survive just like you. Schools of fish larvae drift past like underwater clouds, thousands of individuals moving together for protection. You're tempted to join them. There's safety in numbers, but you're not quite ready. Your swimming isn't strong enough yet, and you just slow them down. Instead, you stay on the edges, picking off stragglers when you can. Your growth accelerates as your hunting improves. What once seemed impossibly large now fits easily in your mouth. You develop preferences, certain types of prey that taste better or provide more nutrition. You learn to read the water, understanding where food is likely to be found. Near the surface during certain times of day, deeper during others, following the vertical migrations of the creatures you hunt. Sleep doesn't exist in your world. The ocean never stops, and neither can you. There's always something to hunt, always something hunting you. You rest by floating, letting the current carry you while you remain alert for opportunities or threats. It's an exhausting way to live, but it's the only way you know. Months into your life, you encounter your first major predator, a juvenile mackerel, sleek and fast, with eyes that track your every movement. It's not huge, but compared to you, it might as well be a sea monster. You freeze, hoping it won't notice you, but those predator eyes lock onto your position. The mackerel approaches slowly, almost casually, like it has all the time in the world. Your only chance is to dart away at the last second, using your small size to slip through spaces the larger fish can't follow. The chase is brief but intense. The mackerel lunges, its jaws snapping shut just inches from your tail. You dive toward a patch of floating seaweed, weaving between the fronds while your pursuer struggles to follow. The larger fish is faster in open water, but here among the obstacles, your size is an advantage. Eventually, the mackerel gives up, swimming away to find easier prey. You remain hidden in the seaweed for a long time, your heart pounding, understanding just how close you came to death. These encounters become more frequent as you grow. The ocean seems to be testing you, throwing increasingly dangerous situations your way. Each time you survive, you learn something new. How to read the movements of predators, how to use the environment to your advantage, how to distinguish between real threats and false alarms. The ocean is a harsh teacher, but it's effective. Your body continues to change, becoming more streamlined and powerful. Your fins grow more proportional to your body, giving you better control and speed. Your coloration begins to develop, still mostly transparent, but with hints of the silver that will eventually cover your body. Most importantly, your instincts sharpen. You begin to understand the rhythms of the ocean, the patterns that govern life in the open water. Food becomes easier to find as your hunting skills improve, but it also becomes more necessary. Your growing body demands more fuel, and you find yourself eating almost constantly. Small crustaceans, as fish larvae, anything organic that drifts within range becomes a potential meal. You're no longer the desperate scavenger you once were. Now you're becoming a predator in your own right. The water around you changes with the seasons, though you don't understand the concept yet. Sometimes it's warmer, sometimes cooler. The types of prey available shift, forcing you to adapt your hunting strategies. During plankton blooms, food is everywhere, but visibility is poor. During clearer periods, prey is harder to find but easier to catch when you do spot it. You learn to make the most of whatever conditions you encounter. Life as a tuna larva is a constant balance between hunting and hiding, growing and surviving. Every day brings new challenges, new predators, new opportunities. You're still incredibly small, still vulnerable to countless threats, but you're no longer the helpless speck you once were. You're developing the skills and instincts that will serve you for the rest of your life, assuming you survive long enough to use them. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, and you're just beginning to understand how vast your world truly is. The first time you see a school of your own kind, it changes everything. They appear out of the blue-green distance, like a shimmering wall of silver, hundreds of juvenile tuna moving as one massive organism. Each individual is about your size, maybe slightly larger, their bodies catching the filtered sunlight as they twist and turn in perfect synchronization. You've been alone for so long that the sight stops you cold. These aren't just random fish, they're family in a way. They're what you're supposed to become, but joining them isn't as simple as swimming up and introducing yourself. Schools have rules, hierarchies, patterns of movement that you don't understand yet. You follow at a distance, watching how they communicate through tiny shifts in position, how they react to threats, how they hunt together. When a cloud of small fish appears, the school doesn't scatter. It reorganizes, forming a perfect hunting formation that drives the prey into a concentrated mass. The efficiency is beautiful and terrifying. Your first attempt to join ends in embarrassment. You approach too fast, disrupting their formation. The entire school shifts away from you, like you're carrying some kind of disease. A few of the larger individuals turn to face you, their bodies rigid with warning. The message is clear. You're not ready. You don't know the rules. Come back when you've figured out how to swim properly. So you do. You spend days shadowing the school, learning their movements from the outside. You practice their turns, their sudden accelerations, their defensive formations. Gradually, you begin to understand that being in a school isn't about swimming together. It's about thinking together, reacting as a single entity instead of hundreds of separate fish. It's harder than it looks. When you finally earn acceptance, it's not through any dramatic gesture. You simply slip into the formation during a routine feeding, matching their speed and direction so perfectly that no one notices the addition. Suddenly, you're part of something bigger than yourself, surrounded by the constant whisper of fins through water and the subtle pressure changes that signal group movement. For the first time since hatching, you're not alone. Life in the school is a revelation. Hunting becomes exponentially easier when you have hundreds of allies. When someone spots prey, the information spreads through the group instantly, not through sound or sight, but through the lateral line system that runs along your body, detecting the slightest pressure changes in the water. The school moves like a single predator, surrounding and concentrating prey until escape becomes impossible. But it's not just about hunting. The school provides protection that no individual could achieve alone. When a shark appears on the horizon, the school doesn't panic. It transforms. Hundreds of bodies create a massive, shifting wall of confusion. The shark sees targets everywhere and nowhere, unable to focus on any single individual. You learn to trust in this defense, to suppress your instinct to flee, and instead move with the group, becoming part of something that's much more dangerous than the sum of its parts. Your position in the school reflects your size and skill. Smaller, weaker fish get pushed to the edges where they're more vulnerable, but also have more opportunities to feed on scraps. Larger, stronger individuals hold the center positions, protected but also responsible for making the split-second decisions that guide the group. You're somewhere in the middle, working your way inward as you grow and prove yourself. The school never stops moving. Even when feeding or resting, there's constant motion, constant adjustment. You develop muscles you didn't know you had, your body adapting to the demands of perpetual swimming. Your stamina improves dramatically, and with it, your speed. What once felt like maximum effort becomes cruising speed. You're built for this, built to swim constantly, built to be part of something larger. Feeding frenzies are chaos and precision combined. When the school encounters a massive bait ball, thousands of smaller fish packed tightly together, the attack is coordinated but vicious. The school surrounds the prey, compressing them into an even tighter mass, while individuals dart in to grab mouthfuls. You learn to time your strikes perfectly, snatching fish from the panicked swarm while avoiding collisions with your schoolmates. It's like a violent dance where everyone knows the steps. Your first real taste of larger prey comes during one of these frenzies. A sardine, silver, and plump gets separated from its own school during the chaos. It's bigger than anything you've ever attempted, almost too large for your mouth, but you don't hesitate. Your jaws stretch wider than you thought possible, your throat working to swallow the struggling fish. The meal is substantial enough to keep you satisfied for hours, and the taste, rich, oily, satisfying, gives you a glimpse of what lies ahead. As months pass, your body undergoes dramatic changes. Your juvenile transparency gives way to the metallic silver that will define your adult appearance. Your fins grow more pronounced, your body more streamlined. Most importantly, your speed increases exponentially. You're no longer just keeping up with the school, you're helping to set the pace. The school teaches you about the ocean's geography in ways you never could have learned alone. You follow ancient migration routes, moving between feeding grounds that have supported tuna for millennia. The water changes temperature, salinity, color as you travel. Sometimes, you're in the deep blue of the open ocean, sometimes over underwater mountains where the seafloor rises to within a few hundred feet of the surface. Each environment brings different prey, different challenges, different predators. Your first encounter with humans comes as a shock. The school is feeding when the water above suddenly erupts with activity. Strange objects crash down from the surface. Nets, lines, hooks baited with fish. Some of your schoolmates investigate, curious about these unusual additions to their environment. Those that get too close disappear upward, yanked toward the surface by invisible forces. The school scatters, but not before you see the shadows above, massive shapes that don't belong in the water. You learn to associate certain signs with human presence. The sound of engines carrying through the water, the glint of metal, the unnatural movement of objects at the surface. The school becomes warier, more cautious about approaching anything that seems out of place. Some of the older fish bear scars, marks from hooks or nets they escaped from. Their survival serves as a warning to the rest of the group, but humans aren't the only threat from above. Seabirds are constant menace, diving down from heights you can barely comprehend to snatch fish from just below the surface. When the school feeds in shallow water, the sky becomes as dangerous as the depths. You learn to watch for the telltale shadows, the sudden darkening that signals an attack from above. When birds appear, the school dives deep, abandoning the surface, feeding grounds until the threat passes. Your hunting skills evolve constantly. What started as desperate lunges at tiny organisms has become precise, calculated predation. You can judge the speed and direction of prey with remarkable accuracy, adjusting your attack angle to intercept rather than chase. Your strikes become more efficient, wasting less energy while achieving better results. You're developing the skills of an apex predator. The school begins to recognize your growing capabilities. You find yourself closer to the center of the formation more often, trusted with more critical positions during hunts and defensive maneuvers. It's not conscious respect. Fish don't think that way, but rather the natural result of proven competence. You've become reliable, dangerous, someone the group can count on. Your body reaches the point where you're unmistakably a young tuna rather than just a large larva. Your proportions have shifted, your swimming style has evolved, and your appetite has grown to match your size. You need more food, better food, and you need it constantly. The ocean is rich with opportunities, but it's also full of competitors who want the same resources you do. Competition within the school becomes more intense as everyone grows larger and stronger. Food sources that once seemed unlimited now require real effort to access. You find yourself jockeying for position during feeding times, using your speed and agility to reach prey before your schoolmates can claim it. It's not personal, just the reality of life in a group where everyone has the same basic needs. Your first major injury comes during a particularly aggressive feeding session. A larger schoolmate, going for the same piece of prey you've targeted, collides with you at full speed. The impact sends you tumbling, disoriented, and hurt. Your left pectoral fin throbs with pain, and swimming becomes awkward and difficult. For a moment, you wonder if this is how it ends: injured, vulnerable, easy prey for any predator that happens by. But tuna are remarkably resilient. Your injury heals faster than you expected, and the forced rest period teaches you something valuable about pacing yourself. You don't always have to be the first to reach prey. Don't always have to push yourself to the absolute limit. Sometimes patience and precision are more effective than raw speed and aggression. The school's movements become more predictable to you as you mature. You begin to anticipate course changes, to sense when the group is about to shift from cruising to hunting mode. This awareness makes you more effective within the formation and gives you glimpses of the complex decision-making process that guides the group. It's not random. There's logic to the school's behavior, patterns based on generations of evolutionary success. Your understanding of the ocean's vertical structure expands dramatically. The school regularly dives to depths you couldn't have imagined as a larva, following prey into the darker zones where the pressure increases and the temperature drops. Your body adapts to these changes, your swim bladder adjusting to maintain neutral buoyancy at different depths. You learn to hunt in near-complete darkness, relying on your lateral line system and other senses to track prey. But it's during one of these deep dives that you encounter something that changes your perspective entirely. The school is following a group of squid when you notice something massive moving in the darkness below. At first, it's just a shadow, then a shape, then something so large it defies comprehension. It's another tuna, but not like any you've ever seen. This fish is enormous, easily 10 times your length, its body thick with muscle and scarred from countless battles. It moves with the casual confidence of an apex predator, ignoring the school entirely as it pursues its own massive prey. That's your future, assuming you survive long enough to reach it. That's what you're becoming, not just a member of a school, but eventually a solitary giant capable of dominating entire sections of ocean. The realization is both thrilling and terrifying. You have so far to go, so much growing to do, so many challenges to overcome. But for the first time, you can truly visualize what success looks like in your world. The school continues its endless journey through the blue, and you swim with them, no longer the desperate larva you once were, but not yet the apex predator you're destined to become. You're something in between, dangerous enough to be respected, but still small enough to need the protection and advantages of group living. It's a precarious balance, but it's exactly where you need to be at this stage of your life. The balance doesn't last forever. As your body continues its relentless growth, the dynamics within the school begin to shift. You're no longer content to follow the movements of others. Your instincts are pushing you toward independence, toward claiming your own territory in the vast ocean. The school that once provided safety and structure now feels restrictive, like a jacket you've outgrown. Your appetite has become voracious. The small fish and squid that satisfied you months ago are now barely appetizers. You need substantial prey, meaty, oil-rich fish that can fuel your expanding frame. But hunting for larger prey while maintaining school formation becomes increasingly difficult. You find yourself breaking away more often, pursuing opportunities that the group ignores or can't handle effectively. The first time you take down a mackerel by yourself, everything changes. The fish is nearly half your length, sleek and fast, but you've grown faster. Your attack is perfectly timed, a burst of speed that closes the distance before your prey can react, followed by a strike so precise it ends the chase before it really begins. The mackerel struggles briefly in your jaws, then goes still. As you swallow your prize, you realize that something fundamental has shifted. You don't need the school to hunt anymore, but independence comes with a price. Without the protection of the group, you're exposed to threats you haven't faced alone since your larval days. The ocean suddenly feels much larger and more dangerous. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every movement in the water could signal an attack. You develop a constant state of alertness that's both exhausting and essential for survival. Your first solo encounter with a serious predator tests every skill you've developed. You're hunting near a seamount when a mako shark appears from the depths below. It's built for speed, even faster than you in short bursts, with teeth designed for tearing through flesh. The shark has obviously detected you, its movements shifting from casual cruising to focused stalking. You have seconds to decide, fight or flight. You choose flight, but not the panicked escape of your juvenile days. This is calculated retreat, using your knowledge of the terrain to your advantage. You lead the shark away from the seamount's rocky outcroppings and into open water where your endurance gives you the edge. The chase lasts for what feels like hours, the mako gradually falling behind as your superior stamina takes its toll. When you finally lose your pursuer, you're miles from where the encounter started, your body aching but your confidence boosted. You survived alone, using nothing but your own speed and cunning. Solitary life forces you to become more strategic about everything. Feeding locations, travel routes, even rest periods require careful planning. You learn to read the ocean's moods, understanding how weather patterns affect prey distribution and predator behavior. Storm systems that once terrified you become opportunities. The turbulent water confuses larger predators while concentrating smaller fish in predictable patterns. Your hunting evolves from opportunistic strikes to calculated campaigns. You begin tracking schools of prey fish across vast distances, learning their migration patterns and feeding schedules. A group of bonito becomes your obsession for weeks, following them through temperature gradients and current systems, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When you finally attack, you don't just take one fish. You hit the school repeatedly, using your speed to scatter them and pick off the confused stragglers. It's methodical, efficient, and incredibly satisfying. The ocean reveals new layers of complexity as you explore it alone, deep underwater canyons where strange fish live in perpetual darkness, thermal vents that create columns of warm water teeming with unusual life forms, surface areas where different currents meet, creating upwellings rich with nutrients and the creatures that feed on them. Each environment requires different hunting strategies, different survival techniques. Your body reaches a size where you begin attracting attention from the ocean's true giants. Marlin, massive and aggressive, view you as potential competition rather than prey. Blue whales, impossibly enormous, create pressure waves as they feed that can be felt from miles away. Great whites, apex predators in their own right, begin to see you as something worth investigating rather than automatically attacking. You're entering the upper levels of the ocean's hierarchy. But it's during a feeding frenzy that you truly understand your place in this world. A massive school of sardines has formed a bait ball near the surface, and predators are converging from all directions. Dolphins arrive first, using echolocation to coordinate their attacks. Seabirds dive from above in suicidal plunges that barely seem controlled. Other tuna appear, some larger than you, some smaller, all drawn by the same opportunity. You don't hesitate. This is what you are built for. You slam into the bait ball at full speed, your momentum carrying you deep into the mass of panicked fish. Your jaws work continuously, grabbing and swallowing without pause. Around you, the water fills with scales and blood as dozens of predators feed simultaneously. It's chaos, but organized chaos, each species using its own strategy to maximize the opportunity. A larger tuna challenges your position in the feeding zone. This fish is easily twice your size, scarred from countless battles, moving with the confidence of someone who's never backed down from a fight. Under normal circumstances, you'd retreat, but something in you refuses to yield. The feeding is too good, the opportunity too rare. You hold your ground. The confrontation is brief but intense. The larger fish charges, trying to ram you away from the prime feeding area. You dodge at the last second, using your smaller size and better maneuverability to avoid the collision. When your opponent turns for another pass, you're ready. You dart in close, using your speed to stay in the bigger fish's blind spot, making yourself impossible to target effectively. Eventually, frustrated by your persistence, the larger tuna moves to a different section of the bait ball. You've won, not through strength, but through determination and tactical superiority. The victory marks a turning point in your development. You're no longer just another predator trying to survive. You're becoming a force to be reckoned with. Your confidence grows with your body, and both feed off successful hunts and survived challenges. The ocean begins to feel less like a hostile environment and more like your domain. Your territorial instincts strengthen as you mature. Certain areas of the ocean begin to feel like yours, productive feeding grounds that you visit regularly, routes between different hunting areas that you know better than any other fish. When other tuna encroach on these territories, you don't automatically defer anymore. Sometimes you challenge them, using speed and aggression to establish your claim to the best resources. But territory means responsibility. You find yourself defending not just feeding grounds, but also the smaller fish that live there. It's not altruism, it's resource management. Keeping the ecosystem healthy ensures a steady food supply. When a group of barracuda moves into one of your areas and begins systematically hunting the local population, you intervene. The fight is savage, your larger size and superior speed eventually driving off the interlopers. The surviving smaller fish don't thank you. They're not capable of that kind of thinking, but they remain, ensuring your hunting grounds stay productive. Your relationship with humans becomes more complex as you grow larger. Commercial fishing boats that once seemed like distant threats now pose a direct danger. Your size makes you a valuable target, and your predictable feeding patterns make you easier to locate. You learn to recognize the sounds of different vessel types, the signatures of fishing gear, the subtle changes in water chemistry that indicate human presence. One encounter comes closer than you'd like. A longline fishing operation has set gear directly through one of your preferred hunting areas. The lines stretch for miles, baited hooks dangling at precise intervals designed to attract fish exactly like you. The bait is tempting, fresh squid and fish that trigger every hunting instinct you possess. But something about the setup feels wrong. The bait is too perfect, too easy, positioned in patterns that don't occur naturally. You approach cautiously, using your superior eyesight to examine the gear from a safe distance. The hooks are enormous, designed for fish much larger than you, but still capable of causing serious damage. The lines themselves are nearly invisible, thin enough to be difficult to detect, but strong enough to hold creatures many times your size. It's a trap as sophisticated as anything nature has devised, and potentially far more deadly. Curiosity wars with caution as you circle the gear. Other fish have already been caught. You can see them struggling against the lines, their movements growing weaker as exhaustion takes its toll. The sight should warn you away, but the bait continues to call to your predatory instincts. This is the eternal dilemma of your species. The same aggressive feeding behavior that makes you an apex predator also makes you vulnerable to human ingenuity. In the end, wisdom wins over hunger. You leave the long lines untouched, seeking prey in areas where the only traps are natural ones. But the encounter leaves you warier, more suspicious of anything that seems too good to be true. The ocean is full of genuine opportunities. You don't need to risk the artificial ones. Your growth rate begins to slow as you approach your adult proportions, but your capabilities continue to expand. Your swimming efficiency improves to the point where covering vast distances becomes routine. Migrations that once would have exhausted you are now barely noticeable. Your hunting precision reaches levels that would have seemed impossible during your schooling days. Most importantly, your understanding of the ocean's complexity deepens with every mile you travel. The realization that you're becoming one of the ocean's apex predators doesn't come all at once. It's a gradual shift in how other creatures react to your presence. Smaller fish no longer just flee, they panic. Medium-sized predators that once might have considered you prey now give you a respectful distance. Even some of the ocean's giants begin to acknowledge your presence rather than simply ignoring you. Your first encounter with a truly massive tuna changes your perspective on what's possible. The fish appears while you're hunting near a deep-water seamount, emerging from the blue like a living torpedo. It's everything you aspire to become: enormous, powerful, moving with the casual confidence of something that has no natural enemies. The encounter lasts only moments, but it's enough to show you the ultimate expression of your species' potential. That glimpse of your future drives you to push harder, hunt more aggressively, take risks that your younger self would have avoided. You're no longer content with mere survival. You want dominance. The ocean is vast enough for many apex predators, but only the strongest, fastest, and smartest reach the very top of the hierarchy. You intend to be one of them, but ambition comes with costs. Your increasingly aggressive hunting brings you into conflict with other apex predators more frequently. Sharks that once avoided you now see you as competition worth eliminating. Other large tuna view your territorial expansion as a direct threat to their own domains. The battles become more frequent and more serious, each one a test of everything you've learned about survival and combat. Your body bears the scars of these encounters: tooth marks from shark attacks, gouges from collisions with other large fish, the inevitable wear and tear of life at the top of the food chain. But each scar represents a victory, a challenge overcome, a step closer to your ultimate goal. You're becoming what evolution designed your species to be, a perfect predator built for speed and endurance, capable of dominating vast stretches of ocean. The transformation isn't complete yet, but it's well underway. You're no longer the tiny, vulnerable larva that hatched in the open ocean, nor are you the dependent juvenile that relied on school protection. You're something new, a maturing apex predator finding your place in the ocean's complex hierarchy. The water around you holds infinite possibilities and countless challenges, but you're ready for whatever comes next. Your journey is far from over, but you've already proven something important. You have what it takes to survive and thrive in one of the planet's most demanding environments. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, and increasingly, it feels like it belongs to you. The first time you encounter a giant squid, you understand why your ancestors evolved to be ocean nomads. The creature rises from depths so profound that sunlight has never touched them, its tentacles stretching longer than your entire body. Those arms writhe with a life of their own, each one lined with suction cups the size of dinner plates, rimmed with hooks that could tear through steel. The squid's eyes are enormous, alien, tracking your movement with an intelligence that feels uncomfortably familiar. You don't attack immediately. This isn't like hunting sardines or mackerel. This is negotiating with something that could easily kill you if the encounter goes wrong. The squid seems equally cautious, its body pulsing with colors you've never seen before: reds, purples, whites that flash across its skin in patterns that might be communication or might be warning. You circle each other like gunfighters in an underwater standoff, each waiting for the other to make the first move. When the squid finally strikes, it's faster than anything that size has any right to be. One moment, it's floating motionless in the water. The next, its feeding tentacles are shooting toward you like living harpoons. You barely twist away in time, feeling the hooks scrape along your flank as you accelerate past. The squid's beak, hidden at the center of all those arms, could bite you in half if those tentacles manage to drag you within range. But you have advantages the squid doesn't. Speed for one, you can outrun those grasping arms in open water. Maneuverability for another, your streamlined body can change direction faster than the squid's bulky form can follow. Most importantly, you have endurance. The squid's explosive movements are powered by a different kind of muscle fiber, one that provides incredible short-term power but burns out quickly. The battle becomes a test of patience. You dart in for quick strikes, using your razor-sharp teeth to tear chunks from the squid's arms before retreating beyond its reach. Each successful attack weakens your opponent, reducing its ability to grapple and hold. The squid fights back desperately, its remaining tentacles lashing out in patterns that fill the water around you with dangerous obstacles. One mistake, one moment of overconfidence, and those hooks will find their mark. The end comes suddenly. The squid, weakened by blood loss and exhaustion, makes one final desperate lunge. But its timing is off, its movements sluggish. You slip past the grasping arms and lock your jaws around the creature's mantle, your teeth finding the soft tissue behind the protective muscle. The squid's struggles grow weaker, its color changes, becoming more erratic, until finally it goes still. You've killed something that could have killed you. The meal is enormous, enough protein and fat to fuel weeks of growth. But more than that, you've proven something to yourself and to the ocean around you. You're not just another large fish anymore. You're an apex predator capable of taking down prey that most creatures wouldn't dare to challenge. The victory changes how you see the ocean. What once seemed like an endless expanse filled with threats now feels more like a hunting ground filled with opportunities. The deep water that used to intimidate you becomes a place of exploration. The open blue that once made you feel exposed now feels like freedom. You belong here, in the vast spaces between continents, in the deep channels where only the strongest creatures survive. Your territorial range expands dramatically as your confidence grows. You begin following the major ocean currents, learning the seasonal patterns that concentrate prey in predictable locations. The Gulf Stream becomes a highway you travel regularly, its warm waters carrying you between feeding grounds, separated by thousands of miles. The California current offers different opportunities, upwelling nutrients that create massive plankton blooms, which in turn attract the smaller fish you've grown to prefer. But it's not just about following food anymore. You're beginning to understand the ocean's deeper rhythms, the complex interactions between temperature, current, and marine life that create brief windows of incredible abundance. When these windows open, you need to be there. When they close, you need to know where the next opportunity will arise. It's a three-dimensional chess game played across an entire ocean, and you're finally skilled enough to participate. Your encounters with other apex predators become more frequent as you expand your range. Blue sharks, sleek and dangerous, shadow you through the deeper waters. They're not quite large enough to see you as prey, but they're curious about your intentions, testing whether you might be vulnerable or worth challenging. These confrontations usually end without violence. A few aggressive displays, some high-speed posturing, and eventually one of you decides the area isn't worth fighting over. Marlin are different. These fish are built like living spears, their bills capable of inflicting devastating wounds, their attitudes suggesting they've never backed down from anything in their lives. When you encounter a large blue marlin in what you've come to consider your territory, the tension is immediate and obvious. This fish isn't going to be intimidated by size or speed. It wants a fight. The battle is unlike anything you've experienced. The marlin uses its bill like a sword, thrusting and slashing with precision that comes from countless similar encounters. You rely on your superior speed and agility, staying mobile, refusing to let the marlin pin you down where that deadly bill can do maximum damage. The fight ranges across miles of ocean, both of you pushing your physical limits in pursuit of dominance. When you finally gain the upper hand, it's through pure endurance. The marlin's explosive fighting style burns energy faster than it can be replaced, while your more efficient swimming allows you to maintain pressure throughout the extended battle. Eventually, the marlin's strikes become less precise, its movements more labored. You press your advantage. using your size and remaining energy to force your opponent into submission. The marlin doesn't die. That was never the point, but it retreats, acknowledging your superiority in this particular piece of ocean. These victories establish your reputation among the ocean's predator community. Word spreads through mechanisms you don't fully understand: scent trails, behavioral cues, the complex social networks that connect even solitary hunters. Other large fish begin avoiding areas where you've been active. Shark species that once might have tested you now give you a respectful distance. You're earning the kind of fear-based respect that only true apex predators command. Your hunting strategies evolve to match your new status. Instead of chasing individual prey, you begin orchestrating larger-scale feeding events. A school of yellowfin tuna becomes your target for an entire week, not because you need that much food, but because the hunt itself has become a form of art. You study their patterns, learn their escape routes, identify the individuals most likely to break formation under pressure. When you finally attack, it's with the precision of a military operation. You strike from below, using the sun's glare to mask your approach until the last possible moment. Your initial charge scatters the school, but you've anticipated their likely escape routes. As they flee in predictable directions, you're already repositioning for follow-up strikes. The hunt becomes a series of calculated attacks, each one reducing the school's numbers and increasing their panic. By the time you're finished, you've taken down a dozen fish, but more importantly, you've demonstrated complete dominance over prey that would have been impossible targets during your juvenile years. The remaining yellowfin scatter to distant waters, carrying news of your capabilities to other schools. Your reputation as a predator worth avoiding spreads even further. The ocean begins to feel smaller as your abilities expand. Distances that once seemed impossible to cover become routine migrations. You develop preferred routes between feeding areas, underwater highways that you travel with the confidence of long familiarity. Certain seamounts become landmarks, specific temperature gradients become navigation aids. You're creating a mental map of your domain that spans entire ocean basins, but with expanded territory comes expanded responsibility. Other creatures begin to depend on your presence in ways you don't fully understand. Smaller predators follow in your wake, feeding on the scraps from your kills and the prey animals you scatter but don't catch. Cleaning fish seek you out regularly, removing parasites and dead tissue in exchange for easy meals. You're becoming a keystone species in your own right, your actions affecting the entire ecosystem around you. The relationship with humans grows more complex as your size increases. Commercial fishing operations specifically target fish like you, using sophisticated technology to track your movements and predict your behavior. Satellite tags attached to other tuna provide data that helps fleets locate schools and individual large fish. Your species' predictable migration patterns, once an evolutionary advantage, now make you vulnerable to industrial-scale harvesting. You learn to recognize the signs of human activity from increasing distances. The acoustic signatures of different vessel types become as familiar as the calls of marine mammals. Fishing gear deployment creates subtle changes in water chemistry that your sensitive lateral line system can detect from miles away. Most importantly, you develop an instinctive wariness of anything that seems too convenient, easy prey in areas where it shouldn't be, unusual concentrations of bait fish, water that tastes slightly wrong. This wariness saves your life more than once. A purse-seine operation targeting a tuna school you've been shadowing deploys its nets just as you approach the feeding area. The net itself is nearly invisible, a wall of monofilament that appears from nowhere to surround the entire school. Most of the fish panic, swimming directly into the closing trap. But something about the situation triggers your survival instincts. Instead of following the school into the net, you dive deep, using your superior swimming ability to escape beneath the closing seine. As you flee the area, you can see the results of your caution. The entire school, hundreds of fish, many of them your size or larger, disappears upward toward the surface, hauled aboard the fishing vessel in a single operation. It's a sobering reminder that despite your apex predator status, you're still vulnerable to the one species that hunts with technology instead of teeth and claws. The encounter leaves you more cautious, but also more determined. If you're going to survive in an ocean increasingly dominated by human activity, you need to become not just an apex predator, but an apex survivor. Every instinct, every skill, every advantage your evolution has provided needs to be honed to perfection. The ocean is still vast, still full of opportunities for those smart and strong enough to exploit them, but the margin for error is shrinking. Your growth continues, though more slowly now. Each pound of additional weight requires exponentially more food, more energy, more risk-taking to acquire. Your body is approaching the theoretical limits of what your species can achieve, the point where additional size becomes a disadvantage rather than an asset. But you're not there yet. You're still growing, still strengthening, still becoming more of what millions of years of evolution designed you to be. The transformation from vulnerable larva to apex predator is nearly complete, but the most challenging phase of your life still lies ahead. The ocean that once seemed impossibly vast now feels like home, but it's a home under increasing pressure from forces beyond your understanding. Your survival will depend not just on your predatory skills, but on your ability to adapt to a changing world where the rules are being rewritten faster than evolution can respond. You are no longer becoming a tuna. You are one in all the magnificent and terrifying complexity that entails. Your territory now spans thousands of square miles, but maintaining it requires constant vigilance. Other large tuna test your boundaries regularly, probing for weakness or distraction. These aren't the desperate challenges of smaller fish. These are calculated moves by apex predators who understand exactly what they're risking. When a massive bluefin appears at the edge of your hunting grounds, both of you know this encounter will determine who controls the richest feeding area in this part of the ocean. The confrontation unfolds like a slow-motion ballet of violence. You circle each other at distance first, each taking the measure of the opponent. This fish is older than you, heavier, bearing scars from decades of similar battles. Its movements have the casual confidence that comes from never having lost a fight that mattered, but you have advantages too: speed, agility, and the desperate hunger of someone still climbing the hierarchy. The first clash is explosive. You both accelerate simultaneously, meeting in the middle of your territorial boundary with enough force to stun smaller fish. Your opponent tries to ram you, using its superior mass as a weapon. You twist at the last second, deflecting most of the impact while raking your teeth along its flank. The taste of blood in the water changes everything. This isn't posturing anymore, it's war. What follows is the most brutal fight of your life. The older fish has experience and size, but you have stamina and desperation. You dart in for quick strikes, tearing flesh from fins and flanks before retreating beyond retaliation range. Your opponent responds with crushing charges, trying to use its bulk to pin you against underwater formations where escape becomes impossible. The battle ranges across your entire territory, leaving a trail of blood and scattered scales that will attract scavengers for days. The turning point comes when your opponent makes a critical error. Exhausted from the extended combat, it misjudges one of your evasive maneuvers and slams headfirst into a rocky outcropping. The impact stuns it just long enough for you to press your advantage. You lock your jaws around its dorsal fin, using your body weight to drive your teeth deeper into flesh. The older fish thrashes wildly, trying to shake you loose, but you hold on with the determination of someone fighting for their entire future. When your opponent finally goes limp, you don't immediately release your grip. This fish could be feigning weakness, waiting for you to relax your guard before launching a counterattack. But gradually, you realize the fight is over. Your adversary isn't dead. That was never necessary, but it's been thoroughly defeated. When you finally let go, the older fish swims away slowly, its powerful tail working harder than it should. You've won not just a battle, but an entire region of ocean. The victory establishes you among the true giants of your species. News of your triumph spreads through the complex communication networks that connect ocean predators across vast distances. Smaller tuna begin avoiding your territory entirely, while other apex predators acknowledge your presence with the wary respect reserved for dangerous equals. You've earned your place in the ocean's most exclusive hierarchy, but dominance brings unexpected responsibilities. Younger tuna begin seeking you out, not as challengers but as followers. They shadow your hunts from respectful distances, learning techniques and strategies by observation. You don't actively teach them. That's not how your species operates, but your presence provides a masterclass in apex predation that shapes their development. Some of these followers are likely your own offspring, though you have no way of knowing which ones. Your hunting grounds become legendary among both prey and predator species. Areas where you've been active regularly show signs of your presence: scattered schools, nervous behavior among smaller fish, the subtle chemical signatures that linger after major kills. Other predators learn to read these signs, understanding that entering your territory means accepting the risk of confrontation with something capable of backing up any challenge. The ocean's seasonal rhythms become your calendar. You know exactly when and where the major baitfish migrations will occur, which current systems will carry the richest concentrations of prey, how weather patterns affect feeding opportunities thousands of miles away. This knowledge, accumulated through years of experience and countless mistakes, makes you incredibly efficient. Where other predators waste energy searching randomly for food, you travel directly to areas where success is virtually guaranteed. Your relationship with the ocean's other apex predators settles into an uneasy balance. Great whites give you space, recognizing that you're large enough to be dangerous if cornered. Orcas acknowledge your presence, but generally ignore you. You're not their preferred prey, and you're too large to be worth the energy expenditure of a hunt. Blue whales, massive beyond comprehension, create opportunities for you by concentrating krill and small fish in their feeding areas. But it's the sharks that provide your most complex relationships. Mako sharks, built for speed like you, sometimes engage in what can only be described as competitive racing. These encounters rarely turn violent. Both species recognize the other's capabilities, but they serve to establish relative status in areas where your territories overlap. Tiger sharks, less predictable and more aggressive, require more careful handling. You've learned to read their body language, understanding when an encounter might escalate beyond mere territorial posturing. Your first encounter with a great white tests every survival skill you've developed. The shark appears while you're feeding on a school of albacore, its massive triangular fin cutting through the surface like a nightmare made manifest. This isn't a territorial dispute. Great whites don't establish territories the way tuna do. This is a predator investigating whether you might be vulnerable enough to become prey. The shark approaches with the methodical patience that makes it so effective. It doesn't rush or threaten. It simply positions itself where it can observe your behavior, looking for signs of injury, exhaustion, or distraction. You abandon your feeding and focus entirely on the threat, understanding that any display of weakness could trigger an attack that would end your life in seconds. What follows is a tense standoff that lasts nearly an hour. The shark circles at various distances, sometimes disappearing into the blue depths, only to reappear from unexpected angles. You match its movements, keeping your body oriented to face the threat while positioning yourself near underwater formations that could provide cover if the situation deteriorates. Neither of you wants this fight. You, because great whites are among the few creatures that could actually kill you. The shark, because healthy adult tuna are dangerous opponents with little nutritional payoff. Eventually, the shark loses interest and disappears into the depths, but the encounter leaves you shaken. For the first time since your juvenile days, you've been reminded that you're not invulnerable. The ocean still contains creatures capable of ending your story, and overconfidence could be fatal. The reminder makes you more cautious, more aware of your surroundings, ultimately more likely to survive the challenges ahead. Your feeding habits evolve to match your massive size and energy requirements. Single fish, no matter how large, barely register as meals anymore. You need substantial prey, entire schools of medium-sized fish, large squid, or the occasional marine mammal that strays too far from protective groups. Your attacks become events that reshape local ecosystems, removing key species from areas and forcing surviving populations to adapt their behavior patterns. A pod of dolphins learns this lesson when they encounter you feeding near their traditional hunting grounds. These mammals are intelligent, social, and normally confident in their ability to handle most oceanic threats. But you represent something outside their usual experience, a fish large enough and aggressive enough to pose a genuine danger to adult dolphins. When you charge their formation during a feeding session, the entire pod scatters in genuine panic. One young dolphin, separated from the group during the chaos, becomes your target. The chase is brief but intense. Dolphins are fast and maneuverable, but they can't match your sustained speed in open water. When you finally close the distance, the kill is quick and efficient. You've crossed another line in your development, moving from fish eater to marine mammal predator. The surviving dolphins flee the area entirely, carrying news of your capabilities to other pods throughout the region. But success attracts attention, and not all of it is from creatures you can intimidate or defeat. Human fishing operations become increasingly interested in your activities, as your size and hunting prowess make you valuable enough to justify special targeting. Satellite tracking technology allows fleets to monitor your movements across entire ocean basins, building behavioral profiles that predict where you'll appear next. So, the technology arrayed against you is staggering in its sophistication. Sonar systems can detect your presence from dozens of miles away. Underwater cameras provide real-time footage of your hunting behavior. Temperature sensors track the thermal signatures you create while feeding. Most insidiously, genetic analysis of water samples can confirm your presence in areas where you haven't been directly observed. The ocean, that once provided infinite hiding places, is becoming increasingly transparent to human surveillance. Your first serious encounter with modern fishing technology comes without warning. You're pursuing a school of skipjack tuna when the water around you suddenly fills with acoustic signals, high-frequency pings that seem to come from every direction at once. The sound is disorienting, interfering with your lateral line system and making it difficult to track prey movements. By the time you realize what's happening, the fishing vessel is already positioning itself for a targeted strike. The gear deployed against you is unlike anything you've encountered before. Instead of the simple hooks and nets that threaten smaller fish, this operation uses guided harpoons, satellite-linked tracking systems, and acoustic deterrents designed specifically for large pelagic species. The hunters above know exactly what you are and have come prepared for a battle against one of the ocean's apex predators. Your escape requires every advantage your evolution has provided. Your speed allows you to outrun the vessel in short bursts, but the humans compensate with technology that predicts your likely routes and positions intercept gear accordingly. Your deep diving ability takes you beyond the reach of surface-based weapons, but underwater drones follow you into the depths. Your endurance, legendary among marine species, is matched against engines that never tire and fuel supplies that seem unlimited. The chase continues for hours, ranging across hundreds of square miles of ocean. You use every trick you've learned: sudden direction changes, dives to crushing depths, bursts of speed that would kill smaller fish from the exertion alone. Gradually, you begin to gain distance from your pursuers. The humans' technology is impressive, but it has limitations. Their tracking systems work best in open water, becoming less effective near underwater formations that create acoustic shadows and thermal layers. You finally lose them in a maze of underwater canyons where the complex geology makes tracking impossible. But the encounter has fundamentally changed your understanding of your place in the ocean. You're no longer just competing with other marine predators. You're being actively hunted by creatures whose capabilities seem to grow more sophisticated every year. Survival will require not just physical prowess, but intelligence and adaptability that can match human technology. The incident forces you to modify your behavior in ways that go against millions of years of evolutionary programming. You become more secretive, avoiding the surface waters where satellite surveillance is most effective. Your feeding patterns become less predictable, incorporating random elements that make it harder for tracking systems to anticipate your movements. Most significantly, you begin avoiding the richest feeding areas during peak fishing seasons, sacrificing optimal nutrition for improved survival odds. These adaptations thus exact a cost. Your growth rate slows as you're forced to accept less efficient feeding opportunities. Your territorial range contracts as you avoid areas with heavy human activity. Most troubling, your reproductive success may be compromised as you spend more energy on evasion and less on the behaviors that attract mates and ensure successful spawning. But you adapt because that's what survivors do. The ocean that created your species is changing faster than evolution can respond, but individual intelligence and behavioral flexibility can bridge the gap between genetic programming and environmental reality. You're no longer just a product of natural selection. You're actively participating in your own evolutionary adaptation, making choices that will determine whether your lineage continues or ends with you. Your territory, hard won through countless battles, becomes a carefully managed resource rather than simply a hunting ground. You learn to exploit it in ways that minimize detection while maximizing nutritional return. Feeding times shift to periods when human activity is reduced. Travel routes incorporate underwater terrain that provides natural camouflage. Even your waste products are managed carefully. The chemical signatures they create can be detected by sophisticated monitoring systems. The ocean around you continues its ancient rhythms, but increasingly those rhythms are modified by human influence. Shipping lanes create acoustic corridors that interfere with natural communication systems. Climate change alters temperature gradients and current patterns that have remained stable for millennia. Pollution introduces chemical signatures that confuse sensory systems evolved to interpret natural oceanic chemistry. Yet within this changing environment, you continue to thrive. Your species has survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions that eliminated countless other marine lineages. The current challenges are different in scope and speed, but the fundamental requirements for survival remain unchanged: speed, intelligence, adaptability, and the determination to continue fighting when lesser creatures would surrender. You are no longer becoming an apex predator. You are one, fully realized and tested by every challenge the ocean can provide. Your story is far from over, but you've already achieved something remarkable. You've proven that individual excellence can overcome seemingly impossible odds. The vast blue world that surrounds you belongs to those strong enough to claim it and smart enough to keep it, and increasingly, it feels like it belongs to you. The years pass, and your body reaches proportions that would have seemed impossible during your larval days. You're now over 8 feet long, your frame packed with muscle that can propel you through the water at speeds approaching 50 miles per hour. Your silver flanks have deepened to a metallic blue-black on top, perfect camouflage when viewed from above against the ocean depths. From below, your pale belly blends seamlessly with the filtered sunlight streaming down from the surface. You've become a living torpedo, engineered by evolution for one purpose: domination of the open ocean. But size brings new challenges. Your massive body requires enormous amounts of fuel, and the ocean, despite its vastness, isn't an unlimited buffet. You need to consume roughly 15% of your body weight daily just to maintain your current condition, and significantly more during periods of rapid travel or intense hunting. This means you're constantly calculating energy expenditure versus caloric intake, making decisions that smaller predators never have to consider. Your hunting strategies have evolved beyond simple predation into something approaching warfare. When you encounter a large school of yellowfin tuna, you don't just attack, you orchestrate a campaign. You spend hours studying their formation, identifying the strongest swimmers who will likely lead any escape attempt, noting the weaker individuals who might break from the group under pressure. Your approach becomes a masterclass in tactical planning. The attack, when it finally comes, is devastating in its precision. You strike from directly below, using the sun's position to create a blind spot in the school's defensive awareness. Your initial charge isn't aimed at any individual fish. Instead, you plow through the center of the formation, using your bulk to create chaos and confusion. As the school explodes into panicked fragments, you're already positioning for follow-up strikes on the scattered survivors. What follows is systematic decimation. You don't chase fleeing fish in random directions. That would waste too much energy. Instead, you exploit your superior speed to intercept escape routes, cutting off retreat paths and forcing prey into kill zones where escape becomes impossible. Your attacks are precisely timed, each strike calculated to maximize damage while minimizing energy expenditure. By the time the massacre ends, you've consumed enough food to sustain yourself for days, and the surviving yellowfin have learned to avoid this section of ocean entirely. These feeding events become legendary among the ocean's inhabitants. Smaller predators learn to follow in your wake, scavenging the scraps and wounded fish left behind by your hunts. Scavenger species like pilotfish develop symbiotic relationships with you, cleaning parasites from your hide in exchange for protection and feeding opportunities. You've become the center of a mobile ecosystem, your presence affecting the behavior of creatures across multiple trophic levels. Your territorial range now spans entire ocean basins. The Pacific becomes your personal hunting ground, its currents and thermal layers as familiar as the contours of your own body. You know where the Kuroshio Current will carry concentrations of squid during winter months, when the California Current will create upwelling events that concentrate baitfish near the surface, how the seasonal warming of surface waters will affect the vertical distribution of your preferred prey species. This knowledge makes you incredibly efficient, but it also makes you predictable to the one species smart enough to recognize patterns in your behavior. Human fishing operations have been studying creatures like you for decades, building databases of movement patterns, feeding behaviors, and seasonal preferences. Your success as a predator has made you valuable enough to justify the deployment of increasingly sophisticated hunting technology. The next serious attempt on your life comes without warning, during what should have been a routine feeding session. You're pursuing a school of albacore when the water around you suddenly erupts with activity. Multiple fishing vessels converge on your position from different directions, their crews working with the coordination of a military operation. This isn't opportunistic fishing. This is a planned assault specifically targeting you. The gear deployed is unlike anything you've encountered before. Instead of simple hooks or nets, the humans use guided projectiles that track your movements underwater. Harpoons equipped with satellite transmitters streak through the water with deadly accuracy, forcing you to dodge and weave like you're navigating a minefield. When you dive deep to escape the surface assault, remotely operated submersibles follow you into the depths, their cameras recording your every movement, while additional weapon systems lock onto your position. Your escape requires pushing your body beyond its normal limits. You dive to depths where the pressure would crush smaller fish, your specialized physiology allowing you to function in conditions that would be fatal to most marine life. The crushing weight of water above creates a thermal layer that confuses the human's tracking systems, but it also forces you to burn energy at an unsustainable rate just to maintain position. The chase continues for nearly 12 hours, ranging across hundreds of miles of ocean. Your pursuers use relay tactics, fresh vessels replacing exhausted crews, while you're forced to maintain maximum effort throughout the entire ordeal. Your legendary endurance, the trait that makes you one of the ocean's ultimate predators, becomes the only thing standing between you and capture. You finally escape by using the ocean's geography against your hunters. A series of underwater seamounts creates a maze of thermal layers and acoustic shadows where human technology becomes less effective. You thread through passages too narrow for the larger pursuit vessels, using your intimate knowledge of the terrain to gradually increase the distance between yourself and your pursuers. When you finally surface hours later, you're alone in the vast blue, but the encounter has left you exhausted and wary. The experience forces another evolution in your survival strategy. You begin to understand that your predictable behavior patterns, the very efficiency that makes you such a successful predator, also makes you vulnerable to human intelligence. You start incorporating random elements into your movements, taking less efficient routes between feeding areas, avoiding the richest hunting grounds during periods of high human activity. These adaptations conflict with millions of years of evolutionary programming. Your instincts drive you toward optimal feeding strategies, maximum efficiency and energy expenditure, predictable seasonal migrations that have served your species since before humans existed. Fighting against these instincts requires constant mental effort, creating stress that manifests in reduced feeding success and slower recovery from injuries. But adaptation is the price of survival in a changing ocean. You're no longer just competing with other marine predators. You're engaged in an evolutionary arms race with human technology that advances faster than biological adaptation can respond. Success requires not just physical prowess, but intelligence and behavioral flexibility that can match human planning and technological capability. Your reproductive instincts begin to assert themselves as you reach full maturity. The drive to spawn, to ensure the continuation of your genetic line, becomes as powerful as hunger or the need for territory. But reproduction for a creature of your size and status involves challenges that smaller fish never face. You need to find a mate worthy of your genetic investment, synchronize with spawning seasons that may occur thousands of miles from your current territory, and survive the vulnerability that comes with the reproductive process. The search for a suitable mate takes you into waters you haven't visited since your juvenile years. Deep ocean basins where the largest tuna congregate during spawning season become your destination, but reaching them requires crossing territories controlled by other apex predators. Some of these fish you've encountered before, old rivals who remember previous territorial disputes. Others are strangers whose capabilities you can only guess at from their size and the scars they bear from countless battles. Your first potential mate appears during a feeding frenzy near an underwater seamount. She's massive, easily matching your own impressive dimensions, her body marked with the scars that indicate successful survival through decades of oceanic warfare. When she notices your approach, her reaction isn't submission or flight, it's evaluation. She's assessing whether you're worthy of her genetic investment, just as you're evaluating her potential as a reproductive partner. The courtship that follows is unlike anything in your previous experience. It's part display of prowess, part endurance test, part mutual evaluation of fitness and genetic quality. You swim together in complex patterns, matching each other's speed and agility, demonstrating the physical capabilities that would be passed on to potential offspring. The dance continues for hours, ranging across miles of ocean as you test each other's limits. Competition appears in the form of other mature males, attracted by the same reproductive opportunity. These aren't territorial disputes. They're contests for breeding rights with one of the ocean's premier females. The battles that follow are more intense than any territorial conflict you've experienced because the stakes are higher. This isn't just about feeding grounds or dominance. This is about genetic immortality, the chance to pass your superior traits on to the next generation. Your main rival is a scarred veteran, even larger than yourself, his body bearing evidence of decades spent at the apex of oceanic food chains. The fight between you is epic in scope, ranging across vast distances as you test each other's speed, endurance, and fighting capability. Neither of you can afford to lose. Defeat means genetic extinction, the end of millions of years of evolutionary refinement that created your particular combination of traits. The battle's turning point comes when your opponent makes a critical error in judgment. Overconfident in his superior size, he attempts a ramming attack that requires perfect timing to be effective. Your slightly superior speed allows you to avoid the full impact while delivering a devastating counterattack that tears through his dorsal fin. The injury isn't fatal, but it compromises his swimming efficiency enough to give you a decisive advantage. When your rival finally acknowledges defeat and retreats, you've won more than just a breeding opportunity. you've established yourself among the genetic elite of your species. The female who witnessed your victory accepts you as a mate, and together you participate in the ancient ritual that has ensured tuna survival for millions of years. The spawning itself is both climactic and anticlimactic. After all the battles and territorial disputes, the actual reproductive act is surprisingly brief. Your mate releases millions of eggs into the current while you fertilize them with precisely timed releases of genetic material. Within minutes, the next generation is drifting away on ocean currents, beginning the same impossible journey you completed years ago. But unlike your own parents, you don't immediately abandon your offspring to fate. Your mate disappears back into the vast ocean, her reproductive obligation fulfilled, but you remain in the area for weeks. It's not parental care in any recognizable sense. You don't actively protect or feed the developing larvae. Instead, your presence in the spawning area serves to deter other predators who might consume your genetic legacy before it has a chance to develop. Your vigil is interrupted by the arrival of human fishing vessels specifically targeting the spawning aggregation. These operations are timed to coincide with tuna reproduction, when normally solitary fish gather in concentrations that make them vulnerable to industrial-scale harvesting. The technology deployed is staggering. Purseines large enough to encircle entire schools, sonar systems that can track individual fish through the water column, satellite coordination that allows multiple vessels to work in perfect synchronization. The attack on the spawning ground is systematic and devastating. Hundreds of mature tuna, gathered for the ancient purpose of reproduction, are harvested in a matter of hours. The genetic diversity of entire populations disappears into shipholds, removing breeding adults whose loss will affect tuna populations for generations. You escape only because your superior size and experience allow you to recognize the threat before the nets close, but watching the destruction of your species' reproductive effort fills you with something approaching rage. The encounter crystallizes your understanding of the existential threat facing your species. Humans aren't just occasional predators or territorial competitors, they're conducting systematic warfare against tuna populations worldwide. Their technology advances faster than your species can adapt. Their harvesting capacity exceeds the ocean's ability to replenish tuna stocks, and their targeting of spawning aggregations threatens the reproductive foundation of your entire evolutionary lineage. Your behavior becomes increasingly secretive and unpredictable as you adapt to this new reality. You avoid traditional spawning areas during peak fishing seasons, even though this reduces your reproductive opportunities. Your feeding patterns become more random, incorporating deceptive routes and false destinations that confuse tracking systems. Most significantly, you begin actively avoiding other large tuna, understanding that concentrations of your species attract human attention. The isolation is profound. For the first time since your juvenile schooling days, you're truly alone in the vast ocean. The social connections that once provided safety and hunting advantages have become liabilities in a world where human technology can track and target any concentration of valuable fish species. Your territorial instincts, evolved over millions of years to ensure access to prime feeding areas, now conflict with survival requirements that demand constant movement and unpredictability. But solitude also brings a different kind of freedom. Without the need to maintain territory or coordinate with other fish, you can optimize your behavior purely for survival and efficiency. Your movements become more fluid, following opportunities rather than defending fixed positions. Your hunting strategies evolve to exploit temporary advantages rather than claiming permanent feeding grounds. The ocean around you continues to change in ways both subtle and dramatic. Water temperatures shift as global climate patterns alter ancient current systems. Chemical compositions change as industrial pollutants and plastic debris alter the ocean's fundamental chemistry. Most significantly, the abundance and distribution of prey species shifts as fishing pressure removes key components of marine food webs. Your diet adapts to these changes out of necessity. Traditional prey species become scarce in areas where they were once abundant, forcing you to exploit new food sources and hunting opportunities. You learn to consume species you once ignored, develop techniques for accessing prey in environments you previously avoided, and modify your feeding behavior to account for the altered distribution of oceanic life. These adaptations require constant learning and behavioral flexibility that pushes the limits of your cognitive abilities. Each new challenge demands novel solutions, creative applications of your physical capabilities, and the ability to overcome millions of years of evolutionary programming when circumstances require it. You're no longer just a product of natural selection. You're actively participating in your own evolutionary adaptation. The process is exhausting and stressful, but it's also evidence of your species' remarkable resilience. Tuna have survived multiple mass extinction events, ice ages, and dramatic shifts in ocean chemistry throughout their evolutionary history. The current challenges are unprecedented in their speed and scope, but the fundamental survival traits that carried your ancestors through previous crises remain embedded in your genetic heritage. Your body begins to show the accumulated effects of years spent as an apex predator in an increasingly hostile environment. Scars from battles with other large fish create permanent reminders of territorial disputes and reproductive competition. Chemical pollutants absorbed through your food chain begin to affect your physiological processes in subtle but measurable ways. Most significantly, the constant stress of avoiding human predation takes a toll on your immune system and overall health, but you continue to thrive because that's what survivors do. Every challenge overcome makes you stronger, smarter, more adaptable. Every narrow escape from human fishing operations teaches you something new about evasion and concealment. Every successful hunt in depleted waters demonstrates your ability to find opportunity where others see only scarcity. Your reputation among the ocean's remaining apex predators grows with each passing year. You've become legendary, not just for your size and hunting prowess, but for your ability to survive in conditions that have eliminated countless other members of your species. Younger tuna seek you out not as a territorial challenger, but as a source of knowledge about survival techniques they'll need to master if they hope to reach maturity in the current environment. But you don't actively teach. That's not how your species operates. Instead, your mere survival serves as proof that adaptation is possible, that individual excellence can overcome seemingly impossible odds. The techniques you've developed through trial and error, the behavioral modifications that keep you alive in an ocean under siege, gradually spread through observation and imitation to other members of your species. You've become more than just an individual fish. You're a repository of survival knowledge, a living library of techniques and strategies that could determine whether your species adapts successfully to the rapidly changing ocean or joins the countless marine lineages that have already disappeared beneath the waves of extinction. The vast blue wilderness that surrounds you remains as beautiful and terrible as ever, but increasingly it feels like a world under siege. The ancient rhythms that governed oceanic life for millions of years are being disrupted faster than evolution can respond. Yet within this chaos, you continue to find opportunity to exploit every advantage your superior capabilities provide. You are no longer just surviving. You're pioneering new ways of being a tuna in an ocean that no longer resembles the one your species evolved to inhabit. Your story has become larger than individual survival. It's become a testament to the power of adaptation, intelligence, and determination in the face of existential threats. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, and despite everything arrayed against you, it still feels like home. More than that, it feels like yours to claim if you're strong enough and smart enough to keep it. Your dominance of the deep ocean attracts challenges from creatures you never expected to encounter. The first giant Pacific octopus you meet changes everything you thought you knew about intelligence in the sea. The creature emerges from a rocky crevice like liquid shadow, its 8 arms flowing through the water with impossible grace. Each tentacle is longer than your entire body, lined with suction cups that could grip with crushing force. But it's the eyes that stop you cold, huge, alien, undeniably aware. This isn't like facing a shark or another tuna. Those encounters follow predictable patterns, governed by instincts millions of years old. The octopus watches you with something that feels uncomfortably like calculation, its skin shifting through colors and patterns you've never seen before. It's not just camouflage, it's communication, though you have no idea what message is being conveyed. When it finally moves, the attack comes from an angle you never anticipated. The octopus doesn't charge like other predators. Instead, it flows around you, using its boneless body to exploit spaces that shouldn't exist. One moment, you're tracking its central mass. The next, you're surrounded by writhing arms that seem to move independently of each other. Your speed, the advantage that saved you countless times before, becomes useless in the confined space between rocky outcroppings where the octopus has chosen to make its stand. The battle becomes a test of completely different skills. Your teeth can tear through flesh, but the octopus's distributed nervous system means that severing an arm doesn't stop the creature, it just makes it angrier. Your streamlined body, perfect for open water pursuit, becomes a liability in the 3-dimensional maze the octopus creates with its spreading tentacles. Every advantage you possess seems designed for a different kind of fight, but you have one thing the octopus doesn't: endurance. The creature's explosive movements require enormous energy expenditure, while your efficient swimming allows you to maintain pressure throughout the extended encounter. You don't try to match the octopus's complexity. Instead, you use your superior stamina to force the fight into open water where your speed becomes relevant again. When the octopus finally releases its grip on the rocky formation and retreats into deeper crevices, you understand that you've encountered something fundamentally different from other ocean predators. This creature didn't just react to your presence. It planned, adapted, problem-solved in real time. The ocean contains intelligences you're only beginning to understand, and not all of them follow the rules you've learned to exploit. Your territory expands into regions where few tuna have ventured before. The deep, scattering layer, that mysterious zone where millions of small creatures migrate vertically through the water column each day, becomes your new hunting frontier. Here, in the perpetual twilight between surface waters and the abyssal depths, you discover prey species that exist nowhere else in the ocean. Lanternfish, their bodies studded with bioluminescent organs, create galaxies of living light in the darkness. Vampire squid, neither squid nor octopus but something more ancient than both, drift through the water like alien spacecraft. Giant siphonophores, colonial organisms that can stretch longer than blue whales, create curtains of stinging death that you must navigate with extreme care. Hunting in this environment requires completely new strategies. Your vision, adapted for the bright waters near the surface, struggles in the dim twilight of the deep scattering layer. You learn to rely more heavily on your lateral line system, reading pressure waves and water movements to track prey through the darkness. Your attacks become more cautious, more calculated. A single mistake in this alien environment could be fatal. The rewards, however, are extraordinary. The deep scattering layer contains more biomass than any other oceanic zone, and much of it exists in forms that surface predators never encounter. Oil-rich lanternfish provide more calories per bite than any surface prey. Deep-sea squid, their flesh dense with proteins needed to survive crushing pressures, offer nutrition that fuels rapid growth and healing. Your body adapts to the demands of deep water hunting. Your eyes become more sensitive to faint light, able to detect the subtle bioluminescence that many deep-sea creatures use for communication and camouflage. Your swim bladder adjusts more efficiently to pressure changes, allowing you to move between depth zones without the lengthy decompression periods that limit other predators. Most importantly, your metabolism becomes more efficient, extracting maximum energy from the rich but infrequent meals that deep water hunting provides. But success in the deep scattering layer attracts attention from predators specifically adapted to this environment. Six-gill sharks, living fossils that have remained unchanged for millions of years, patrol these depths with the patient efficiency of creatures that have perfected their hunting strategies over geological time scales. These sharks are larger than great whites, their jaws capable of crushing prey that surface predators couldn't even wound. Your first encounter with a six-gill occurs while you're feeding on a school of deep-sea hatchetfish. The shark appears from the blackness below, like a nightmare made manifest, its primitive eyes reflecting your movement with predatory focus. This creature predates your species by hundreds of millions of years, its body plan so successful that evolution has left it essentially unchanged since before fish developed bones. The six-gill doesn't attack immediately. It doesn't need to. In the deep waters where pressure and darkness limit your options, time favors the patient predator. The shark simply follows, maintaining just enough distance to avoid triggering your flight response while making its presence unmistakably clear. It's a psychological hunt designed to exhaust your mental resources before the physical confrontation begins. Your escape requires abandoning the rich feeding grounds and ascending rapidly towards surface waters where the six-gill's ancient physiology becomes a disadvantage. The shark pursues for a time, but eventually the changing pressure and temperature gradients force it to abandon the chase. You've survived another encounter with deep ocean royalty, but the experience reminds you that every expansion of your territory brings new challenges from predators specifically adapted to exploit those environments. The surface waters, once your exclusive domain, are becoming increasingly crowded with human activity. Shipping lanes create highways of noise and chemical pollution that interfere with your sensory systems. Research vessels deploy instruments that track your movements with scientific precision. Most ominously, fishing fleets use satellite data and computer modeling to predict your behavior with accuracy that seems almost supernatural. Your response is to become increasingly nocturnal, exploiting the cover of darkness to move between feeding areas and avoid detection. Night hunting requires different skills. Your prey animals behave differently in darkness. Your own sensory systems must compensate for reduced visibility, and the ocean's vertical structure change as the daily migration brings deep water species toward the surface. But darkness also provides opportunities. Many of your preferred prey species are more vulnerable at night, their usual protective behaviors disrupted by the need to feed on organisms that only approach the surface after sunset. Schools of flying fish, normally impossible to catch during daylight hours when they can escape into the air, become accessible targets when darkness limits their aerial abilities. Your night hunting techniques evolve rapidly. You learn to use bioluminescence as a tracking tool, following the light trails created by disturbed plankton to locate schools of feeding fish. Your attacks become more acoustic, relying on the sound signatures created by feeding activity rather than visual cues. Most importantly, you develop the ability to hunt by scent alone, following chemical trails through the water with the precision of a bloodhound tracking through forest. The ocean's chemistry is changing in ways that affect your most basic survival functions. Increasing acidity alters the behavior of prey species, making them more difficult to locate and catch. Rising temperatures shift the distribution of food sources, forcing you to travel greater distances for adequate nutrition. Most insidiously, chemical pollutants accumulate in your tissues, affecting everything from your reproductive capabilities to your immune system function. Your body becomes a living archive of oceanic change. Heavy metals from industrial discharge concentrate in your liver and kidneys. Microplastics embed in your digestive system, creating chronic inflammation that reduces your feeding efficiency. Endocrine disruptors interfere with your hormonal systems, affecting everything from your territorial behaviors to your ability to navigate using magnetic fields. But you adapt, because adaptation is what apex predators do. Your diet shifts to include prey species with lower contamination levels, even when this means accepting less nutritional value. Your feeding behavior becomes more selective, avoiding areas where pollution concentrations reach dangerous levels. Your metabolism adjusts to function, despite the chemical burden you carry, though at the cost of reduced efficiency and increased energy requirements. The changes aren't just individual, they're affecting your entire species. Spawning success rates decline as chemical pollutants interfere with reproductive processes. Juvenile survival drops as contaminated prey provides inadequate nutrition for growing fish. Most critically, the behavioral modifications required to avoid human predation conflict with millions of years of evolutionary programming, creating stress responses that weaken immune systems and reduce overall fitness. Your territory, once measured in square miles, now spans entire ocean basins as you're forced to travel greater distances to find adequate food in an increasingly depleted environment. Traditional feeding grounds that supported generations of tuna now lie empty, their prey species eliminated by overfishing or driven away by environmental changes. The seasonal migrations that once brought reliable hunting opportunities have become unpredictable as climate change disrupts ancient patterns. Yet within this chaos, you continue to find success. Your superior intelligence and adaptability allow you to exploit opportunities that other predators miss. When traditional prey becomes scarce, you pioneer new hunting techniques targeting previously ignored species. When human activity makes certain areas too dangerous, you discover alternative routes that provide access to unexploited resources. Your reputation spreads beyond the tuna community to encompass the ocean's entire predator hierarchy. Sharks give you respectful distance, recognizing that your size and experience make you a dangerous opponent. Marine mammals acknowledge your presence with the wary attention reserved for apex predators. Even the great whales, massive beyond comprehension, adjust their behavior when you appear in their feeding areas. But it's the younger generation of tuna that provides the most compelling evidence of your impact. Fish that have never directly interacted with you still demonstrate behavioral modifications based on techniques you pioneered. Your innovations in hunting strategy, evasion tactics, and habitat exploitation spread through the population like cultural knowledge, passed from one individual to another through observation and imitation. You've become more than just a successful predator. You're an evolutionary catalyst, your survival strategies providing a template for species-wide adaptation to rapidly changing conditions. The techniques you've developed through decades of trial and error are being refined and improved by each new generation, creating a feedback loop of innovation that could determine whether your species survives the current crisis. The ocean stretches endlessly around you, as vast and mysterious as ever, but increasingly it feels like a world under siege. Every successful hunt is shadowed by the knowledge that similar opportunities are becoming rarer. Every narrow escape from human predation carries the understanding that the technology arrayed against you grows more sophisticated each year. Every territorial victory comes with the awareness that the territories themselves are shrinking as human activity claims larger portions of oceanic space. But you continue to thrive because survival is what you do. It's what you've always done, from your first desperate moments as a translucent larva to your current status as one of the ocean's most formidable predators. The challenges have changed, grown more complex and dangerous, but your fundamental advantages remain intact. You're still faster than almost anything in the ocean, still more intelligent than most marine predators, still capable of adapting to conditions that would eliminate lesser creatures. The vast blue wilderness that surrounds you may be under threat, but it remains yours to claim if you're strong enough, smart enough, and adaptable enough to keep it. Your story has become larger than individual survival. It's become a testament to the power of evolution, intelligence, and determination in the face of seemingly impossible odds. You are no longer just a tuna surviving in the ocean. You are the ocean's memory of what apex predation can achieve when pushed to its absolute limits. The years have transformed you into something beyond ordinary tuna biology. Your body now stretches nearly 10 feet from nose to tail, a living missile packed with muscle that can accelerate from 0 to 40 miles per hour in seconds. Your weight approaches 600 pounds, every ounce distributed with the precision that only millions of years of evolution can achieve. When you move through the water, smaller fish scatter not from fear, but from the pressure waves your passage creates. You've become a force of nature that reshapes the ocean around you. Your hunting has evolved into something approaching art. When you encounter a massive school of Pacific saury, you don't simply attack. You orchestrate their destruction with surgical precision. You circle the school at distance first, studying their formation and identifying the key individuals whose panic will trigger the collapse of their defensive structure. Your approach comes from below, using the thermal layers to mask your heat signature until the last possible moment. The strike is devastating in its efficiency. You don't target individual fish. Instead, you plow through the school's center like a living torpedo, your momentum creating a shockwave that stuns dozens of saury simultaneously. As the formation explodes into chaos, you're already positioning for the follow-up attacks that will capitalize on their confusion. Your jaws work continuously, grabbing and swallowing without pause, while your body maintains the precise positioning needed to intercept escape routes. Within minutes, you've consumed enough protein to fuel days of travel, and the surviving saury have scattered to waters hundreds of miles away. But it's not just about the food, it's about sending a message to every prey species in this section of ocean. Your reputation precedes you now, creating zones of influence where fish alter their behavior simply because you might be present. The ocean's geography has become your personal map, every current and thermal layer cataloged in memory systems that span decades of experience. You know exactly where the Oyashio current will carry concentrations of krill during spring months, when the Kuroshio extension will create eddies that trap schools of flying fish, how the seasonal warming of surface waters will affect the vertical distribution of your preferred prey species. This knowledge makes you incredibly efficient, but it also makes you increasingly valuable to the humans who study your kind. Satellite tags attached to other large tuna provide data that fishing fleets use to predict your movements with disturbing accuracy. Acoustic monitoring systems track your distinctive swimming signatures across entire ocean basins. Most insidiously, genetic analysis of water samples can confirm your presence in areas where direct observation is impossible. The ocean that once provided infinite hiding places has become increasingly transparent to human surveillance technology. Your response is to become unpredictable in ways that go against every instinct evolution has programmed into your nervous system. You begin incorporating random elements into your hunting patterns, taking inefficient routes between feeding areas, avoiding the richest prey concentrations during periods when human activity peaks. The modifications exact a terrible cost. Your growth rate slows as you're forced to accept suboptimal feeding opportunities. Your territorial range contracts as you avoid areas with heavy fishing pressure. But adaptation is survival, and survival is what separates apex predators from the countless species that have already vanished beneath the waves. You develop new hunting techniques that exploit temporary advantages rather than claiming permanent territories. Your movements become more fluid, following opportunities rather than defending fixed positions. Most importantly, you learn to think in ways that confuse the pattern recognition systems humans use to track your behavior. The deep ocean becomes your refuge as surface waters grow increasingly dangerous. Here, in the perpetual twilight, where sunlight fades to memory, you discover hunting opportunities that surface-dwelling tuna never exploit. The deep scattering layer, that mysterious zone where billions of small creatures migrate vertically through the water column each day, becomes your new frontier. Lanternfish cluster in living galaxies of bioluminescence, their bodies packed with oils that provide more calories per bite than any surface prey. Deep sea squid, their flesh dense with proteins needed to survive crushing pressures, offer nutrition that fuels rapid healing and continued growth. But hunting in this alien environment requires completely new strategies. Your vision adapts to the dim twilight, becoming sensitive to the subtle bioluminescence that deep-sea creatures use for communication and camouflage. Your lateral line system evolves to read pressure waves through water dense enough to crush surface-dwelling fish. Your swim bladder adjusts to pressure changes that would rupture the organs of lesser predators. You're becoming something more than a traditional tuna. You're evolving into a deep ocean specialist. But the depths have their own apex predators, creatures that have perfected their hunting strategies over geological timescales. Your first encounter with a colossal squid changes your understanding of what intelligence means in the ocean's deepest zones. The creature emerges from abyssal darkness like a living nightmare, its hooks and tentacles creating a sphere of death that extends far beyond its central body mass. This isn't like fighting other fish or even giant Pacific octopi. The colossal squid operates according to logic systems that seem almost alien, its distributed nervous system processing information in ways your vertebrate brain can barely comprehend. When it attacks, the assault comes from multiple directions simultaneously, each tentacle operating with apparent independence while contributing to an overall strategy that defies your understanding of predatory behavior. Your escape requires pushing your body beyond its designed limits, diving to depths where the pressure approaches the theoretical maximum your physiology can withstand. The squid pursues with mechanical persistence, its body adapted for pressures that would crush surface-dwelling creatures. Only your superior speed in straight-line swimming allows you to gradually increase the distance between yourself and those grasping arms lined with rotating hooks. When you finally surface hours later, your body aching from pressure damage and exertion, you understand that you've encountered something that exists beyond the normal hierarchy of oceanic predators. The deep ocean contains intelligences that operate according to rules evolution never taught your species, and survival in their domain requires humility as much as strength. Your territorial instincts adapt to these new realities. Instead of claiming fixed hunting grounds, you establish temporary zones of influence that shift with prey availability and predator pressure. Your movements become more nomadic, following ancient migration routes while incorporating modern innovations that confuse tracking systems. You're pioneering a new way of being an apex predator in an ocean where the traditional rules no longer apply. The reproductive drive that once focused your behavior into predictable seasonal patterns now conflicts with survival requirements that demand constant mobility. Spawning aggregations, the traditional gathering places where tuna have reproduced for millions of years, have become killing fields for industrial fishing operations. Your species' most vulnerable moment, when normally solitary fish gather in concentrations dense enough to support efficient reproduction, has become an opportunity for humans to harvest entire breeding populations in single operations. Your response is to seek out mates individually, abandoning the safety of numbers for the security of isolation. This strategy reduces your reproductive success. Finding compatible partners becomes exponentially more difficult when you can't rely on traditional aggregation sites, but it increases the survival odds for both yourself and your potential offspring. When you finally encounter a suitable mate, she's a scarred veteran like yourself, her body bearing evidence of decades spent adapting to an increasingly hostile ocean. The courtship that develops between you is unlike anything your species has traditionally practiced. Instead of the brief, intense encounters typical of spawning aggregations, you spend weeks traveling together, learning each other's hunting techniques and survival strategies. The relationship becomes a masterclass in cooperative predation. Together, you can tackle prey that would be impossible for either individual to handle alone. Schools of large tuna that would normally flee from a single predator find themselves trapped between two apex hunters working in perfect coordination. Your combined hunting efficiency increases exponentially, while the shared vigilance provides security that solitary hunters can never achieve. But cooperation also means a compromise. Your partner's territorial preferences don't always align with your own, forcing negotiations that require diplomatic skills your species never evolved to possess. Her hunting techniques, refined through different experiences and challenges, sometimes conflict with strategies you've spent decades perfecting. Learning to accommodate another apex predator's needs while maintaining your own effectiveness becomes an exercise in behavioral flexibility that pushes your cognitive abilities to their limits. The spawning itself occurs in deep water, far from the traditional sites where human surveillance concentrates. Your mate releases millions of eggs into the current, while you fertilize them with precisely timed genetic contributions. But unlike your own parents, neither of you immediately abandons the area. Instead, you establish a loose patrol around the spawning site, your presence deterring smaller predators that might consume your developing offspring. This behavior represents a fundamental shift in tuna reproductive strategy, an evolutionary innovation driven by the need to protect genetic investments in an increasingly dangerous ocean. The larvae that develop under your distant guardianship show survival rates significantly higher than those produced through traditional spawning methods, though the energy cost of extended parental investment reduces your own survival odds. Your offspring, when they finally hatch, enter an ocean dramatically different from the one you knew as a larva. Surface waters that once teemed with zooplankton now show signs of systematic depletion. Traditional prey species have shifted their distributions in response to changing temperatures and chemistry. Most critically, the chemical signatures of human activity permeate even the most remote oceanic regions, creating background contamination that affects development at the cellular level. But life finds ways to adapt, and your genetics carry innovations that improve survival odds in contaminated environments. Your larvae show enhanced resistance to heavy metal poisoning, improved efficiency in extracting nutrition from degraded food sources, and behavioral modifications that help them avoid the most dangerous concentrations of human activity. Evolution is responding to unprecedented challenges with unprecedented speed, though whether the adaptations will prove sufficient remains unclear. Your own body begins showing the accumulated effects of decades spent as an apex predator in a chemically altered ocean. Microplastics embed in your digestive system, creating chronic inflammation that reduces feeding efficiency. Heavy metals concentrate in your organs, affecting everything from your immune responses to your ability to process the toxins that now permeate the marine food web. Endocrine disruptors interfere with hormonal systems that regulate everything from territorial behavior to navigation using magnetic fields. Yet you continue to thrive because adaptation is what apex predators do when faced with environmental challenges. Your diet shifts to include prey species with lower contamination levels, even when this means accepting reduced nutritional value. Your metabolism adjusts to function, despite the chemical burden you carry, though at the cost of increased energy requirements and reduced efficiency. Your behavioral patterns evolve to avoid areas where pollution concentrations reach levels that would compromise your physiological functions. The ocean around you continues its ancient rhythms, but increasingly those rhythms are modified by human influence in ways both subtle and dramatic. Shipping lanes create acoustic corridors that interfere with the pressure wave communication systems your species uses for long-distance coordination. Climate change alters temperature gradients and current patterns that have remained stable for millennia. Industrial fishing removes key species from marine food webs, creating cascading effects that reshape entire ecosystems. Your territorial range, once measured in hundreds of square miles, now spans multiple ocean basins as you're forced to travel unprecedented distances to find adequate nutrition. The Pacific becomes your hunting ground from Alaska to Australia, its currents and thermal layers as familiar as the contours of your own body. You know where the Aleutian Current will carry concentrations of salmon during their spawning migrations, when the equatorial countercurrent will create upwelling events that concentrate deep-water prey near the surface, how seasonal weather patterns will affect the distribution of everything from krill to flying fish. This knowledge makes you incredibly efficient, but it also makes you increasingly predictable to human intelligence systems that have been studying your species for decades. Satellite tracking data from tagged tuna creates behavioral profiles that allow fishing fleets to anticipate your movements with disturbing accuracy. Acoustic monitoring systems can identify your distinctive swimming signature from hundreds of miles away. Genetic analysis of water samples confirms your presence in areas where direct observation is impossible. Your response is to become deliberately inefficient in ways that confuse pattern recognition algorithms. You begin incorporating random elements into your travel routes, taking circuitous paths between feeding areas that waste energy but make your movements unpredictable. You develop false destination behaviors, approaching traditional hunting grounds only to veer away at the last moment toward areas that satellite analysis suggests should be unproductive. These modifications exact a severe cost. Your energy expenditure increases dramatically as you abandon the efficient routes evolution spent millions of years perfecting. Your feeding success drops as you avoid the richest prey concentrations during periods when they're most accessible. Your territorial control weakens as other predators exploit areas you're forced to abandon for security reasons. But survival trumps efficiency, and you're pioneering survival strategies that could determine whether your species adapts successfully to an ocean under increasing human pressure. The techniques you develop through trial and error spread through observation and imitation to other large tuna, creating a feedback loop of innovation that accelerates behavioral evolution beyond natural timescales. Your encounters with human technology become increasingly sophisticated as fishing operations deploy gear specifically designed for apex predators of your caliber. Guided harpoons track your underwater movements with satellite precision. Sonar systems map your exact position in three-dimensional space. Remotely operated submersibles follow you into depths where human divers cannot survive, their cameras recording your every movement while weapon systems lock onto your position. The chase sequences that result push both human technology and your biological capabilities to their absolute limits. You dive to crushing depths where the pressure approaches the maximum your specialized physiology can withstand, your body adapting in real time to conditions that would be fatal to surface-dwelling creatures. Your pursuers compensate with pressure-resistant drones and deep-water tracking systems that maintain contact even in the abyssal zones where most marine life cannot survive. Your escapes require exploiting every advantage millions of years of evolution have provided. Your speed allows you to outrun pursuit vessels in straight-line races, though human technology compensates with relay tactics that provide fresh pursuit teams while you're forced to maintain maximum effort throughout extended chases. Your endurance, legendary among marine species, becomes the only thing standing between you and capture when confrontations extend across hundreds of miles and multiple days. The deep ocean's geography becomes your ally in these encounters. Underwater mountain ranges create acoustic shadows where sonar tracking becomes ineffective. Thermal layers generated by volcanic activity confuse heat-seeking guidance systems. Most critically, your intimate knowledge of three-dimensional terrain allows you to exploit passages and features that human maps have never cataloged, but each successful escape comes at tremendous cost. The stress of constant evasion affects your immune system, making you more susceptible to diseases and parasites that healthy tuna can easily resist. The energy expenditure required for maximum effort swimming depletes your body's reserves, forcing you to hunt more frequently in an ocean where prey concentrations are becoming increasingly unpredictable. Your body begins to show the accumulated damage of life at the apex of a food web under siege. Scars from territorial battles create permanent reminders of conflicts with other large predators. Chemical burns from industrial pollutants mark areas where contamination has reached levels toxic even to your hardy physiology. Most significantly, the chronic stress of avoiding human predation manifests in cellular damage that accelerates aging and reduces your overall life expectancy. Yet you continue to dominate your chosen territories, because dominance is what apex predators do when faced with existential challenges. Your hunting techniques evolve to exploit every available advantage. Your territorial strategies adapt to changing conditions. Your survival instincts sharpen to levels that would have seemed impossible during your earlier years. You're not just surviving, you're pioneering new ways of being a tuna in an ocean that no longer resembles the environment your species evolved to inhabit. The younger generation of tuna that shadows your movements provides evidence that your innovations are spreading beyond individual survival to encompass species-wide adaptation. Fish that have never directly interacted with you demonstrate behavioral modifications based on techniques you pioneered. Your hunting strategies, evasion tactics, and habitat exploitation methods spread through the population like cultural knowledge, passed from one individual to another through observation and imitation. You've become more than just a successful predator. You're an evolutionary catalyst whose survival strategies provide a template for species-wide adaptation to rapidly changing oceanic conditions. The techniques you've developed through decades of trial and error are being refined and improved by each new generation, creating an accelerating cycle of innovation that could determine whether your species survives the current environmental crisis. The vast blue wilderness that surrounds you remains as beautiful and terrible as ever, but increasingly it feels like a world where the fundamental rules are being rewritten faster than evolution can respond. Ancient migration routes that supported tuna populations for millions of years now lead through gauntlets of human activity that eliminate entire age classes in single operations. Traditional feeding grounds lie empty, their prey species harvested beyond sustainable levels or driven away by environmental changes that cascade through entire ecosystems. But within this chaos, you continue to find opportunities that lesser predators miss entirely. Your superior intelligence and behavioral flexibility allow you to exploit resources that other apex hunters cannot access. When traditional prey becomes scarce, you pioneer hunting techniques targeting previously ignored species. When human activity makes certain areas too dangerous, you discover alternative routes that provide access to unexploited feeding grounds. Your reputation now extends beyond the tuna community to encompass the ocean's entire predator hierarchy. Great whites give you respectful distance, understanding that your size and experience make you a dangerous opponent even for apex sharks. Orcas acknowledge your presence with the wary attention reserved for creatures capable of inflicting serious damage if cornered. Even sperm whales, those titans of the deep ocean, adjust their daving patterns when you appear in their feeding areas. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, vast and mysterious, despite the human activity that increasingly dominates its surface layers. In the deepest trenches and most remote basins, life continues according to rhythms that predate human civilization by hundreds of millions of years. Here, in the last refuges where ancient rules still apply, you continue to thrive as evolution designed your species to thrive, as the ocean's ultimate predator, built for speed and intelligence, capable of dominating any environment, swift enough to claim and smart enough to keep. Your story has become larger than individual survival. It's become a testament to the power of adaptation, determination, and evolutionary excellence in the face of challenges that would eliminate lesser species entirely. You are no longer just a tuna surviving in the ocean. You are the ocean's memory of what apex predation can achieve when pushed to its absolute limits by a world that demands nothing less than perfection. The years weigh heavily now, your massive frame carrying the accumulated damage of decades spent as the ocean's apex predator. Your body, once a perfect expression of evolutionary engineering, shows the inevitable wear of a life lived at maximum intensity. Scars from countless battles create a roadmap of violence across your flanks. Your fins, though still powerful, bear the marks of near misses with fishing gear and encounters with creatures that shouldn't have been able to wound you. Your swimming, while still formidable, requires more effort than it once did. The effortless acceleration that once made you unstoppable now demands conscious control, your muscles working harder to achieve the same devastating bursts of speed. Your endurance remains legendary, but recovery takes longer. Rest periods stretch deeper into hours that younger predators use for hunting. The ocean around you has changed beyond recognition from the pristine wilderness you knew as a juvenile. Entire species that once filled your hunting grounds have vanished, their absence creating empty spaces in ecosystems that took millions of years to develop. The water itself tastes different, chemical signatures that have no natural source, temperatures that fluctuate outside ancient patterns, acidity levels that burn your gills during extended deep dives. Your prey has adapted too, but not always successfully. Fish that once schooled in massive, predictable formations now scatter into smaller, warier groups that require more energy to hunt effectively. Traditional migration routes have shifted as changing currents and temperatures force entire species to seek new feeding grounds and spawning areas. The timing of seasonal abundance, once as reliable as the tides, has become unpredictable, but you endure because endurance is what separates legends from footnotes in evolutionary history. Your hunting techniques, refined through decades of innovation and adaptation, allow you to extract nutrition from an increasingly depleted environment. Your territorial knowledge, spanning multiple ocean basins, provides alternatives when traditional feeding grounds fail. Most importantly, your ability to learn and adapt continues to function despite the accumulated stress of life in a world under siege. A young challenger appears one final time, drawn by your reputation and the rich feeding grounds you still control. This fish is everything you once were: fast, aggressive, burning with the desperate hunger of someone still climbing the hierarchy. Its attacks are precise, its movements efficient, its confidence absolute. Under normal circumstances, you would have driven it off easily, your superior size and experience overwhelming any advantage youth might provide. But these aren't normal circumstances. Your body responds more slowly than your mind demands. Your strikes, while still devastating, lack the explosive precision that once made you untouchable. Your endurance, though vast, has limits that younger predators can exploit. For the first time in decades, you find yourself in a fight where the outcome isn't predetermined by your superiority. The battle is brutal and extended, ranging across miles of ocean as both of you push your physical capabilities to their breaking points. Your opponent uses speed and agility to avoid your most powerful attacks while landing quick strikes that gradually wear down your defenses. You rely on experience and technique, using your knowledge of combat tactics to force the younger fish into positions where its advantages become irrelevant. When the fight finally ends, you're still in control of your territory, but barely. Your challenger retreats, wounded but not defeated, carrying knowledge that will make it more dangerous in future encounters. You remain the apex predator of this section of ocean, but the margin of your dominance has narrowed to almost nothing. The message is clear. Your time at the top of the hierarchy is approaching its end. Your body begins to fail in ways that no amount of willpower can overcome. The accumulated toxins from decades of feeding in contaminated waters start to affect your nervous system, creating tremors that interfere with your hunting precision. Your immune system, compromised by chronic stress and chemical exposure, struggles to fight off infections that healthy tuna resist effortlessly. Your organs, pushed beyond their design limits by years of maximum performance, begin to show signs of irreversible damage. Yet you continue to hunt, to patrol your territory, to maintain the routines that have defined your existence for so long. Each successful kill becomes more precious as you understand that the number remaining grows smaller. Each day spent in your chosen waters carries the weight of knowing that fewer such days lie ahead. Each encounter with other apex predators might be your last opportunity to defend what you've spent a lifetime building. The ocean that once seemed infinite now feels bounded by the limitations of your aging body. Distances that were once routine become epic journeys, requiring careful planning and extended recovery periods. Depths that you once reached effortlessly now demand dangerous exertion that leaves you vulnerable to predators and human hunters alike. The three-dimensional world that was your domain begins to contract as physical reality imposes constraints that youth never recognized. Your final encounter with human technology comes without warning, during what should have been a routine feeding session in waters you've hunted for decades. The gear deployed against you represents the culmination of everything humans have learned about hunting creatures like you. Satellite-guided harpoons, pressure-resistant tracking systems, sonar arrays that can locate individual fish across entire ocean basins. But you're no longer the apex predator who could outrun any pursuit, outdive any tracking system, outfight any challenge the ocean could provide. Your responses, while still formidable, lack the explosive power that once made you legendary. Your evasive maneuvers, though tactically sound, can't generate the speed differentials that previously allowed you to escape even the most sophisticated hunting operations. The chase that follows is your final testament to everything evolution designed your species to be. You dive to crushing depths where the pressure approaches the limits of vertebrate physiology, your body adapting one last time to conditions that would be fatal to lesser creatures. You use every technique you've learned, every advantage your lifetime of experience has provided, every ounce of strength your massive frame can generate. Your escape requires pushing beyond the boundaries of what should be possible, burning through energy reserves that can never be replaced, inflicting damage on your organs that will never heal. When you finally surface in the deep blue far from your pursuers, you understand that this victory has cost you everything you had left to give. The infection starts small, in wounds that would have healed easily during your prime years. But your compromised immune system can't fight off bacteria that healthy tuna eliminate without effort. The toxins spread through your bloodstream, affecting your coordination, your judgment, your ability to hunt effectively. Your body, which has carried you through decades of oceanic warfare, begins the slow process of shutting down. You return to the deepest part of your territory, to waters where you've spent the best years of your life. Here, surrounded by the thermal layers and current systems that have been your highway through the vast blue wilderness, you make your final stand, not against another predator or human hunter, but against the inevitable conclusion that awaits every creature No matter how perfect, no matter how dominant, no matter how magnificently adapted to their environment. Your last hunt is successful. A small school of flying fish that provides barely enough nutrition to sustain your massive frame. But the effort required leaves you exhausted, your body struggling to maintain the basic functions that once seemed effortless. Your territorial patrol becomes shorter, then sporadic, then finally ceases entirely as you lack the strength to defend what you've spent a lifetime building. The ocean continues its ancient rhythms around you, indifferent to your struggles, but somehow still welcoming. The same currents that carried you as a translucent larva now cradle your failing body with the same gentle persistence. The deep blue that once represented infinite possibility now offers the peace that comes with having lived fully, having achieved everything evolution designed your species to achieve. Your consciousness fades gradually, like sunlight disappearing into the ocean depths you know so well. There's no drama in your passing, no final battle against impossible odds. You simply stop swimming, your body sinking slowly into the darkness that has been your refuge during the most challenging years of your life. But your legacy continues in ways both seen and unseen. The techniques you pioneered spread through the surviving tuna population, innovations that increase their chances of adapting to an ocean under siege. Your offspring, scattered across multiple spawning seasons, carry genetic improvements that enhance survival in contaminated environments. Your territory, rich with the nutrients from your successful hunts, supports entire ecosystems that will thrive long after your passing. You lived as evolution intended, a perfect predator built for speed and intelligence, capable of dominating any environment, swift enough to claim and smart enough to keep. Your story became larger than individual survival, a testament to the power of adaptation and determination in the face of challenges that would eliminate lesser creatures entirely. The vast blue wilderness stretches endlessly in all directions, as beautiful and terrible as ever, still offering infinite possibilities to those strong enough and smart enough to seize them. Life as a tuna might be rough, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse. Trust me, it's wild. Check out the video and see for yourself.